So we're going to start today, and I just want to welcome everybody officially. This is the story of home, food, family, and community, which is a resource call from the JFest Arts Festival for JCC Movement, really for you, developed for you and for professionals, so that you can engage with your communities on a local level and hopefully maximize the JFest experience, but also take resources that we've built as a result of our deep dive at JFest to use at multiple touch points throughout the year with your community. It's as we hope you get to spend more and more face-to-face time with people as the world continues to reopen safely. So here we are together. I'm Randy Luderman. I'm Vice President of Development and Arts and Culture at JCC Association of North America. And I'm very, very glad you're here with us. And joining me today from JCC Association is Isabel Madish, our Program Manager also for Development in Arts and Culture. And our names appear as hosts at the top of your participant list, and you can certainly address any needs or questions with us as they come about. We're here for you today. Well, we're hoping that by now that you've not only heard about JFest, but that with your communities, you've actually participated either by joining a JFest event on Virtual J or participating in an earlier Story of Home resource call, which again are built for you to support and deepen your work in your local communities. Amazing work, especially over the last 18 months, that has taken on forms we would never have imagined. So again, a shout out to all of you in the field who are really doing the heavy lifting and changing as the time changes with your communities to support them and lift them up. JFest really, which is we're calling our virtual arts festival for the JCC movement, has enabled us to offer high quality content programming for all ages on Virtual J through our partners in Toronto. And we've been sharing complementary marketing materials and resources to sort of help, again, deepen connections and build resilience in our JCC communities. Isabel's going to continue to share links in the chat as we work through things today to really to make possible that you sort of grab onto the richness that's still available to you throughout November and December, because we have a few wonderful resource calls still to come and two magnificent programs in December with incredible, incredible creative and education partners. So I'm hoping you'll join for those. Throughout the year, our programs continue to explore three core themes of storytelling: how you tell your story, how others tell our story, how history tells our story. Basically, we're very engaged in this notion that our community narrative strengthens and lifts us up, and we're exploring the many languages through which we can have that adventure together and in our communities. All of our JFest programs have been made possible through funds granted by the Covenant Foundation, with additional support from the Pertzik Fund for Arts and Culture, and we're incredibly grateful to them as well. One of the most satisfying things about working on JFest with Isabel is that we collaborate in partnership with these amazing artist educators that come to us from around the world. And they've really helped us tell our stories, and they've really helped us stay connected even when we're apart. So today in particular, we're thrilled to be joined by our very own Robin Awend, a Minnesota-based artist and JCC cultural arts programmer. And as a JFest artist educator, Robin's been reflecting with us on the Shemitah year in particular, and its connection to food, to family, and to our communities. So we asked Robin to pair with us and build with us and think with us as we built a recent JFest event, which some of you in your communities joined us for, with Chef Michael Solomonov, called Sustain, a Root to Stem cooking show. I think Isabel's going to pop that link into the chat. We cooked live with him, and many people are now asynchronously engaging their communities through his recipes and through his narrative of sort of food as a love language, which we thought was spectacular when we had our show with him. And we're really working with him, and have been, and with Robin, on this idea of release for Shemitah, sustainability, alongside themes of family, story, memory, and the food that connects us all. And to that point, I will say, Robin and I have known each other for a long time, and she's been a tremendous professional, a remarkable artist, just a wonderful colleague. And I knew and thought I knew an awful lot about her, but what I didn't actually know about her is that she's also, in her own way, I'm just going to call her a food professional. I'm going to call her a food professional. And I'm going to share with you why I realized Robin was a food professional. Isabel.
I think we can all agree that food is almost always the answer. We are food-prompted beings and emotional eaters, which is why I personally feel calmer the closer in proximity I am to food. My family has discovered that even our Google Home smart speaker answers to, "Okay, Google." Right? This works well as a Jewish parent. There is always an excuse to have food nearby. This has become my go-to, especially since some of my other basic survival skills are still evolving. I've been known to faint, my gag reflex is easily triggered, and my default is to panic. I have 3 young children, and it is my job to keep them alive. So I compensate for these shortcomings with food. It serves as a great runner-up or honorable mention to a wide array of life's unpredictable moments. My survival skills were put to the test on that dreaded winter day, the day that our community got the call. There was a bomb threat here at the Sabus JCC where I work and where my kids attended school. We had to evacuate the building immediately. I had been preparing myself for this moment for weeks, knowing that eventually it would be our turn. When I received the text about the immediate evacuation, I was not in the building. I was not anywhere near it. I have worked in this building every day for the past 13 years, but not that day. I was downtown starting an artist residency, something I had been looking forward to for months. This self-indulgent endeavor was already laced with gobs of self-inflicted guilt, but now it was a million times worse. How could I not be there for my kids, or anyone's kids, in this moment of community crisis? In full-on panic mode, I managed to get to my car, my heart was pounding, and I was sweating profusely. My thoughts were spiraling as I was flying down the highway. What if this time the threat was real? How did they know for sure that everyone was out of the building? Did I have any emergency purse snacks? I desperately searched my oversized handbag for anything I could get my hands on. As I inhaled a 2-pack of apple fig bars, I frantically called my husband, who's the go-to for all important non-food related things. Injuries, illnesses, life-altering moments. This definitely qualified. I peeled into the parking lot of the safe zone, which was about a mile from the J. I pulled myself together and ran into the building. There were kids in towels that had been pulled from the pool during swimming lessons. There were older kids helping babies and toddlers, staff tending to every need. There was a palatable combination of calm yet anxious energy penetrating the air. I finally located my kiddos, gave them a huge hug, hid my tears and fears, and asked what I could do to help, knowing very well that this entire scenario was my kryptonite. Snacks, the staff said. Get snacks. These kids need to eat. So without missing a beat, I began triage in the way that I knew how. I ran to my car where I met my husband, who had just pulled into the parking lot, and without exchanging a word, we knew what needed to be done. I opened the trunk of our family minivan, and we began pulling out Costco-sized boxes upon boxes of snacks. Chips, fruit snacks, Pirate's Booty, cookies, pretzels. Thankfully, I had a mix of sweet and salty, chewy and crunchy, not knowing what food combinations would be helpful at this very moment. Over the next few minutes, we had single-handedly fed over 150 kids and 25 adults. It was literally raining snacks, like confetti on New Year's Eve. Where did all of this food come from, people asked. I wanted to say that I had just come from the grocery market, but I didn't. I had it all stashed in my car as a parental precautionary measure. Some people carry spare tires in their trunk, and I carry spare granola bars. So I just smiled and said how grateful I was that I was able to help, feeling so thankful that everyone was safe and that everyone was fed. 3 years later, almost to the day, I still think about all the ways in which our community came together to support and take care of one another in that moment of need. Now, I know not everything can be solved through food, but for the 99% that can, I will always have your snack.
Amazing, 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 amazing. I love it so much. Thank you for letting us share that, Robin. I think it's amazing also to listen to you tell that story for so many reasons, but not the least of which to show us how close we are to these memories and to the feelings that are connected through family and food, and to help us sort of begin to see how we can share our stories in the context of our Jewish communities, our families, and the things that are important to us, which are not always apparent as the things that are important to us. But when we dig into a story, we sort of have a revelation. So this notion that you started with me, I know, talking about kugel and how you had a kugel recipe, which then became this other remarkable story about the way you hold those close to you, dear and safe. So to me, that's everything. So welcome, 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 Robin. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much, Randy and Isabel. And if we were in person, of course, you know that I would have so many snacks to share with you as we were having this time together. But unfortunately, we can't. So you'll just have to imagine this big basket of yummy treats sitting in front of you. As Randy mentioned, I'm Robin Awind, and I live in Minneapolis and have served as the Cultural Arts Director for the Minnesota JCC for the past 15 years. And you just watched a video of a story that I wrote and shared as part of the 2020 Twin Cities Jewish Humor Festival's Night of Jewish Storytelling, titled, "I Will Always Have Your Snack." And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that one thing we all have in common is our love of food. Or as I like to say, food is almost always the answer. Food does so many things. It brings people together. It connects us to our past. It helps tell the story of who we are and where we come from. It sustains us, and it offers us comfort and joy. It can elevate our celebrations and help us get through some really tough times. As Chef Mike Solomonov says, this is what we do as Jews. We share food, we cook together, we tell the story of our families, of our lives through food. Growing up, I personally think about the process of making hamantashen with my mom and the multiple cans of filling, the poppy seed, the almond, the cherry lining the countertop. I think about the smell of our family's matzo ball soup cooking for hours in our oversized red pot, and the sound of my grandmother's meatballs simmering on the stove. Each year, I look forward to cooking with my own children, passing on these special family recipes and creating new food memories to enrich our lives, one meal at a time. This moment we are in is very special. This current Jewish year, 5782, is a Shemitah year, as Randy mentioned, which is really a sabbatical year, which only occurs every 7 years in the Jewish cycle. Shemitah means release or letting go. So what does this have to do with food exactly? This Shemitah concept is rooted in the Torah. It is a year in which the land is left to rest, to lie fallow, and harvests are to be freely distributed for all to access. Shemitah is still practiced today in parts of Israel and around the world. However, the wisdom of Shemitah goes beyond agriculture. It is also a practice of letting go of things that do not serve us, which could be unhealthy habits or behaviors, listening more and saying less, cooking together more often, eating out less frequently. In embracing Chef Mike's root to stem philosophy, he shares a beautiful story about his Sephardic grandmother who made the most delicious barakas. And as a picky eater growing up, he talks about how this was his way to connect with her. It became the love language that they shared together. These important food memories bring us back to who we are and to the roots of our Jewish heritage. We all hunger for connectivity, especially in our current landscape of virtual reality versus real human connection. I was introduced to a really wonderful, creative, interactive experience at the Walker Art Center in Minneapolis many years ago, called the Conversation Cafe. And it was created by Taylor Baldry and Wayne Fuller. And I'm excited to share this with you today. The idea of the Conversation Cafe is to grab a friend, a community member, even a stranger, for a fun and engaging conversation around everyone's favorite topic, food, of course. A thoughtful menu of delicious questions is provided. And essentially you start at the top and you choose one question from each of the 3 menu sections. So there's the appetizer section, which has the lighter questions, the main course section, which is a little more meaty questions, and then the dessert section, which are a little more fun. And then you let the conversation unfold from there. And we're going to give you a little taste of this foodie experience by grouping you into small, intimate, we're going to call them dining rooms today for fun, to engage in some delicious conversations. And our hope is that you will discover something new about yourself and maybe something new about somebody else in the process. You are invited to revisit the menu for additional sustenance if you find yourselves with more time. You will have about 20 minutes to make your way through the menu, and then we will come back together to digest and share some of your culinary conversations.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm happy to see you.
Randy.
Who's hungry?
I am Randy. Is hungry.
Randy Zucker. If you are hungry, then this was a success, because this is supposed to whet our appetites for more. And also, this is, forgive me for the food metaphor, low-hanging fruit, right, Rob? I mean, this is the whole point of this, is there are like so many different ways this can be used. While you guys were in your breakouts, we in the studio audience, we're having a secondary conversation about sort of creating it as a Thanksgiving Hanukkah resource, all these other things we'll talk about as we get to that place. But first, I'm going to throw it back to our chef of the day. See what I did there, Robin, to take us through a lot of
little food puns here we're working on. Well, it's so nice to have everybody back, and we are a really small, intimate group, so we're hoping if people are comfortable, everybody might be willing to share something from their conversation. So it can be something that you might have shared, something that surprised you, maybe something you learned about somebody else. It's all on the table for discussion, and so I just want to open it up for people to give some feedback about what this was like for you, and maybe even just about the process itself too.
Anyone can jump in. We're a small enough group. We'll be careful with each other. Randy, I can't hear you, but it looks like you're talking.
Oh, how about now?
Now we can.
Okay, got to talk loud with my headphones. Okay, that was really fun. We had a good time in our group. And I don't know, it was nice learning about other families and how each of us grew up with food and recipes and who they're connected to. And even one of us, didn't grow up with great food memories, and has chosen to take that on herself now with her family. So it was really interesting, really fun.
Thank you. Anyone else wants to share a story from your share? Was there any? Go ahead.
I was also in the group with Randy, so I had a similar sort of first initial response to our conversation, which was I really enjoyed it, and it was a really nice conversation, and we did get to know each other and sort of our backgrounds in a little bit of a different way with this approach, and it was nice to see some parallels and some differences, because I don't know if you really think about your relationship to food in sort of contrast to other people's. I have a very strong food family connection and relationship and history, and I I just don't know anything different. And so it was interesting to kind of hear, other people's stories. And I thought the questions were nice because you could kind of, sample, on the different things presented and, what they might have inspired in you. And then kind of you could respond to each other. We started sort of exchanging and talking about different recipes and things we want to try that somebody else did. And so, there was, we talked about how we all have sort of our own family or personal like banana cake, banana bread type situation. And, there's now Julie's pesto recipe that I think we're all going to try, so there's like a lot of like fun sort of exchanges that like now could, move to future, I don't know, some things. So that's great.
I wondered if there was an unspoken goal in there, how long it took groups to get to recipe exchange. If it's like, we're going to prompt you with these questions, but by the end, let's see what minute every group exchanged a recipe, because I imagine that happens naturally, even though it's not a direct question.
Could be, I don't know, but it's such a funny idea. And also I was thinking about like this notion of were there top 5 foods that kept resurfacing. And in my head, because in my head, I always think back to like the matzo ball and the gefilte plate, and then it's banana bread and pesto, which I just think is also that it's not even the food per se, it's the care and it's the replication and it's the sharing and it's the, that piece of it that is actually about sort of holding close with our communities. And the other thing I just want to say is, Franny, you mentioned this notion of your relationship with food and your family and your community and not really thinking about it in context of other people's relationships. And the other level I was thinking about is, women and everyone, but in my head, particularly women, maybe I'm wrong about that, have also complex relationships with food, right? So that there's not just my own personal relationship with food in my family. There's my own personal relationship with food, like just up here that I'm not going to share with you out of respect for everybody, but here we are, and we're being invited to think about food more broadly. And we're, so to me, that's when Robin shared this with us. I thought this is really a remarkable way to think about your community through this very personal relationship.
I would also just maybe say that we kind of did go into that area too, because we talked about portion control and like, how you change, your cooking or how your relationship with cooking changes depending on, maybe who is or is no longer living in your household, or, there are just different things that came up naturally that I think kind of spoke to all those different facets of like relationship with food and relationship, with food in family or in community or just personally.
Very nice.
It made me grateful again. There was a question in the appetizer thing that brought back like a really strong memory I had like almost asked myself a long time ago, which was like, does food taste better if you make it or somebody else makes it for you? And it's not even about the cooking, but there was a time when I was when my twins were babies, right? They were babies, and I was home on maternity leave, and like cereal was my nemesis because it would get soggy before you could even get a bite. And I was like, again, the cereal has like gone, and like people would bring, it wasn't even cooking, but like if they cut up fruit for me, I don't know what was so amazing about being able to reach in the refrigerator and get melt. I know, and so all of a sudden, I'm like Rhonda, she would bring me cantaloupe, and Jane would bring, all of a sudden very appreciative to them for like the cut up fruit because it was just such a savior kind of thing to have. So
that's awesome. Also, it's care, right? It's though I know Julie's pesto recipe is about pesto, it's also about the fact that's, that by the way, in my house, that someone's going to make me pesto, just to be clear, it will not be me. And so happy. You're muted, but I need to hear what you just said, Julie.
No, sorry. I keep trying to put the recipe in and it's all messed up. Sorry. You have to ignore that.
Okay, we'll ignore it and you can share it with Isabel and we'll share it back with everybody after. Don't worry.
Sorry. I can't listen and type. So.
Okay, that's how come I can't cut and cook at the same time.
I also I pasted a little bit ago a link to actually, we are collecting recipes and food stories as part of this resource and as part of our overarching work with JFest. So I put the form in the chat and it's hyperlinked in this resource. So when you scroll down past the menu, we have a section called Still Hungry. So that's something that you can put your recipes in, as well as if you do this in your communities, that's how we're going to collect the recipes and stories that come up in these conversations. So we're hoping that by the end of it, we will have a very impressive cookbook from across the North American Jewish landscape. That's the dream, that's the goal. But I also wanted to share something, having done this exercise, not today, but previously. I loved even the fact that some of the questions were, the question, if you could magically have one more skill or talent in the kitchen, what would it be? Made me realize that I want my partner's skills because we complete each other in the kitchen.
That's great.
I'm like the flavor master, and she is the chop master. But I realized that, like, if I had her skills, then it wouldn't be this communal experience. And like, that just made my heart melt, because like, I knew that, but the way that question prompted it and made me think about it was just so special.
It's really nice. Robin, while we're sort of thinking about how this made our small group think and share, can you give us a few creative kernels about how people might take this back to their communities? I'm sure everybody on this call has a thought about how you might use it also, and we'd like to hear that too. I'm just mindful of time and making sure we don't keep you forever, because we're all hungry and we have to snack. Robin, what do you got?
It's been almost an
us?
hour.
It's
Nobody's been
insane.
eating.
It's madness.
I'm worried about everyone. So there's so many ways this can be used. And like Randy said, I'm sure you've already maybe started thinking about some of those ideas. Something as simple as bringing it to a staff meeting, is a great way to start engaging people with this just on a very basic level. You could set up a little sort of faux cafe in your lobby before or after an event as we're starting to come back. I know we're still kind of doing this distancing thing, but if people have masks and they're, I think there's, as people are coming back to real life in-person moments, it can be really awkward for people. I know so many people have anxiety, and there's like, what do I talk about? And what is there to say? And what do we share? And this is such a great natural icebreaker for people, to give them a tool to come together. You can use it at your holidays with family. You can offer that to your community. You could even bring it into your ECCs, and maybe it's a picture menu that kids make. You could really adapt it. Really, that's the idea for, obviously, if kids aren't reading it, or maybe the teacher asks the questions and the kids get together. But there's so many ways, and I'll just share too, I know we're really low on time, but when this event was done at the Walker Art Center, what they did was they actually had folks dressed as professional waiters, and they created this really sort of formal outdoor dining experience. And you had to approach the host stand and wait to be seated. And it was very formal and very professional. And it made you feel like you were literally at an outdoor cafe, and you'd sit down with, it was only tables for two, and you'd get your menu, and the server would walk away and wish you a wonderful meal, and you'd have your conversation and you'd leave when you were done. But, it's sort of setting the stage for this to happen. And that is one way also to sort of take it to the next level. So there's lots of ways. And as you're thinking about this for your community, we would love at some point to hear back how you've used them, because that can help inform how other communities use them as well.
Anyone on the call have any ideas or sort of anything come to you about ways that you might think about integrating the resource, either personally or professionally, that you want to share?
I had a similar thought to the staff meeting, which is would be at a committee meeting, which I think it would be great.
I do too, actually. I love the idea with lay people of creating an opportunity for them to engage about things that are not their philanthropy and not the matter at hand. But like, you know, there's this assumption, I think, with our lay communities, our committees and our boards that they all know an awful lot about each other because they've read the board bios. And as you just learned, there's something else to be learned, right? So I think that's a great idea. Yeah. Anyone else? Well, Isabel's gonna, I guess, take us home, but I would like to say briefly just that I'm really grateful you guys were here, and also that we'll send out the resource. We'll send out the resource so that you guys have access to it, and if and when you're thinking about using it, the second page, which is the menu page, can also just be printed on its own so that you can literally hand it. Although I was saying to Robin that I love the idea of like tasking a group also in creating a physical menu that can be held, because sometimes people in awkward social situations or opening social situations feel great when they're grounded with something they're hanging on to. So this notion of like having a cardboard, and that's like, I've got my menu and now we're going to connect to each other and you have something to look out, and then you can look up and connect to each other. So I think that's nice too.
Can I just say one last thing before I
Sure.
turn it over to Isabel? Kimberly, you jogged a memory that I had that I just wanted to quickly end on. When we had our third child, you know, it's sort of customary now for people to create food trains and people to sign up for things to bring you. And so many people were signing up to bring lasagna. And a friend of ours called and said, you know, what do you need that you're not getting? And I was like, just please, like, not lasagna, like not like it's great. I love it, but there's only so many, like, you know, lasagna dishes you can eat. She's like, great, we'll make you a kugel. And I was like, still all pasta. But, you know, it's like, we have these like categories in our mind of food and like what they do for you. And I was like, okay, we'll get a kugel. But it was just, it's like its own, you know, food it becomes its own category. So it's just a funny story we still joke about, you know, the lasagna and the kugel combination. So anyways, on that note, Isabel, I turn it over to you and just want to say thank you all for being here today. I really enjoyed connecting with each of you, and hopefully this will be something that you'll be able to use in your communities.
This was great. You can, I'm thinking in using it with family, like, you know, family get-togethers, and really talk about, you know, now that the kids are bigger and have their own families, it's like, yeah. So thank you. That was very, very interesting. Yes.
Hey, so glad you were here with us.
Thank you all so much. I know we have many places to be, but I just want to quick share that the resource that you have now outlines Shemitah, which we talked about at the beginning of the session, links to the Sustain call that we had on Virtual J with Chef Michael Salamano of the event. And also the last two pages are the recipes. So you can follow along and cook and watch the program asynchronously, have your communities follow along. There are multiple ways in, and really the broader work that we're doing with JFest is to provide you with multiple ways in, and to amplify and connect the diverse stories that make up our vibrant Jewish communities. And I could say so much more, but really I will say for all, if you are looking for more information, you know where to find me and Randy, and you can also reach out to jfest@jcca.org. That is also the email that we will be using for your communities to connect with us, to share stories, to learn more, to find out about our events. And so once again, just thank you all so much. Please share your recipes with us. Link is in the chat as well as in the resource itself. And we look forward to seeing you on another Story of Home call soon.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks
for everything.
everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.